Hey, Dwight, it's Gary.
Hey, Gary.
Thank you.
Trying to turn up the volume, but
Want to watch it too? I just set it on the bed.
I don't know. For everyone that's on the call, could they mute themselves, please, just so we can get clarity?
Here is.
Good afternoon and welcome to this Envision Franklin Plan Amendment neighborhood meeting. It's a land use plan amendment that is sparked by our project called the Middle Eight. First, we'd like to just go over real briefly some housekeeping rules. These are standard. The format of the meeting is as follows. I'll take a few minutes just doing this housekeeping and opening intros. We'll spend about 15 to 20 minutes on formal presentation and what we're presenting tonight. And then we'll follow up with questions and answers that you may have. We would appreciate it if you would enter your questions into the Zoom chat feature and will be answered in the order that they have been received towards the end of this presentation. My name is Dwight Kaiser. Next, please. And I appreciate you all being here tonight. I am a landscape architect and one of the principals of Kaiser Vogler Design located in Franklin, Tennessee. And we're here to talk about a land use plan amendment, which is one part of site plan and zoning approval for our project that's called the Middle Eight. Next. The Middle Eight is located on Liberty Pike and Daniels Drive across from the factory. It is right off the intersection of Franklin Road and Liberty Pike. And you can see here the factory district, Jameson Station, and of course Harlansdale Farm in the up towards the top of the picture. Towards the end of this, we'll talk a little bit about an upcoming Franklin District workshop that we want to get the word out, and hopefully you all will be able to attend. So I'll deal with that as we get to it. Our site is roughly 7.2 acres. As I said, it does have frontage on Liberty Pike primarily, as well as Daniels. There is a small pipe stem that goes out to Old Liberty Pike. We do not anticipate using this other than potentially for a pedestrian path that might connect parks on Old Liberty Pike and within the Middle Eight project itself. Certainly, there would be no automotive access to that location. Just some existing issues that I want to, not issues, but coverage that we're going to go over. The existing zoning for this is R4. That's residential 4. Next. We also have a historic preservation overlay. It's part of the Franklin Road overlay, and the green actually indicates that area of the overlay. You can see on this image that the site is actually bifurcated down the middle. It ran along an old property line, and that's why only the northern half of this specific site is within the historic preservation overlay. The Envision Franklin document, however, has identified this as multifamily residential. We'll get into the Envision Franklin just in a second. If you look across the street, you'll notice that the factory itself is classified as a neighborhood commercial use. And to our east, to the right on page, is our neighborhood mixed use, which is the Jamison Station development. So what is Envision Franklin? Some of you may know, some of you may not. It was created, adopted by the Franklin Planning Commission in 2017. It articulates the long-term vision that will direct the future development of Franklin. I like to say it's a view of Franklin at 30,000 feet that puts together the pieces that the city has adopted. And then as you zoom down in specific site plans, that carries with it. Why is Envision Franklin so important? Well, the plan provides guidance regarding land use decisions, managing the quality of development, determining timing, location of growth, which is very important, and directing investment and development activities. The vision for Envision Franklin is that Franklin will be a connected community of vibrant neighborhoods anchored by its historic downtown. The city seeks to strategically manage growth while preserving historic resources and natural beauty. Design concepts is why we're actually here tonight. The vision and guiding principles establish the overall direction and principal themes of this plan. However, the framework is established to implement the vision and guiding principles, and these are the design concepts. They're founded on the principle of well-designed places. They're essential to protecting and enhancing community character, and they improve the overall livability. Lastly, can Envision Franklin be amended? Well, frankly, the answer is yes. Amendments can be requested by the applicants or brought forward by city staff on a quarterly basis. The Franklin Municipal Planning Commission holds a public hearing prior to voting by resolution on all amendment requests, and there is opportunity to speak at those planning commission meetings. The current design concept is broken down into, in this case, is the uses for the site are multifamily residential uses. The primary type of development would be assisted living or multifamily residential. There's a secondary types of uses that would include big houses, duplexes, single families, and towns, all of which we have included in our project, and I'll show you in just a second. The Middle Lake Development Plan aligns with Envision Franklin design concept by proposing a diverse mix of single-family houses, duplexes, and townhomes. The crux of our request tonight is that a special consideration for height be considered when underground parking is provided. Parking reductions may also be considered when underground parking is provided. And limited retail is appropriate when it supports the community, neighbors, or the residential experience itself. This is the very conceptual site plan for the Middle 8. We will not be concentrating on the site plan tonight, but I did want to share this with you. It shows a new street that is actually been planned in here with single family and duplex units facing onto the street and backing to the residents on Old Liberty Pike. In the center and fronting Liberty Pike itself will be three buildings. This building is connected by an aerial walkway that would be multifamily apartments, call it what it is, in various stages. All parking will be underground. It will be highly amenitized. Because our parking is underground, we're able to produce roughly 50% open space per our current calculations. And I think this is something very important to consider. The total number of dwelling units is 254. If you look in the lower right, you'll notice that the site data will tell you exactly the number of units. We do have 3 townhouses, which are number 1 and above left, that will face directly onto Liberty Pike, looking across to the factory. Houses 2, 3, and 4 are single family as well, and they will back up to the homes that front Franklin Road itself. Next, please. These are elevation studies that we have been working with the Historic Zoning Commission, the Design Review Committee, which is part of that group. We've had several meetings with staff. And while we are not there yet, we think that we are certainly driving towards a very exciting and highly developable project for this site. You'll notice that on the left is Jamison Station. Jamison Station is actually a non-conforming building when it comes to height based on the Envision Franklin document. It was actually built before Envision Franklin was adopted. And so again, it's a non-conforming use. Our proposal is with the east building, east residential building that you're seeing right here, is that its height be within 10% of the existing height of Jamison Station, which as proposed it is. It is 4 stories with a 1-story step back or penthouse at the very top. But our base elevation has been designed so that it appears as a single-story commercial retail type of experience, very similar to exactly what is happening to Jamison Station on the other side of Daniels Drive. We have also studied sightlines along Liberty Pike, making sure that we set back from Liberty Pike and create what we hope will be a fantastic pedestrian experience. Liberty Pike as it is today, as you see in the lower right, is pretty bland and has turned into, a pretty quick moving street. We hope with the inclusion and introduction of more residential, and when I say more, Jamison Station has residential as well, but more residential fronting onto Liberty Pike, and with hopefully future improvements that may include planted medians, perhaps street trees, street lighting, things of that nature. We will create a very viable automobile and residential corridor that is safely monitored for both uses. Next, please. This is the opposite view. We're actually standing, for those familiar with it, at the railroad tracks on Liberty Pike, looking back to the east. You can see the water tower and of course the smokestack on the factory to the right. Jamison Station is actually exhibited on the left. And as you go down the road, you can see that we're proposing to create that, or to continue that same streetscape and presence on Liberty Pike itself. We've also created several models. These are 3D models. The trouble is this is all flat. Of course, our site slopes. So we're kind of looking at how we can create courtyards, a rhythm of courtyards and building down Liberty Pike, as opposed to a continuous building facade, which is exhibited on Jamison Station to the left. And then finally, our view from aerial view, bird's eye view, if you will, on conceptually what the development might look like nestled into the existing factory and Franklin Road in the bottom right-hand corner. The townhomes that are first located on the site are about 350 feet back from the intersection of Franklin Road and Liberty Pike, to give you a general feeling, which is about a little bit over a football field length. You can see how we have tried to create massing, break up the massing and create a rhythm that works up and down Liberty Pike and creates a strong pedestrian corridor as well as vehicular corridor to share with what might be coming with the future renovation, if I should say, of the factory itself. Next. I want to give a plug real quick to what some of you may have heard as the factory district. This is an aerial view, obviously, of the site. It includes the Middle 8 site, which you see in the bottom left. I have put this circle on here just to conceptually show the area that the factory district might be considered. Next, please. There will be a workshop that's coming up, a community workshop at the factory itself on February 16th. We would love, and the staff would especially love for everyone to join us if you can, 5:30 to 7 o'clock. And this will be probably the first of many to discuss updates to the Envision Franklin document, and more specifically, design considerations for the factory district itself. Next, please. So what are the next steps? Staff will review this request to amend Envision Franklin. They will release a report with a recommendation on March 15th. And Franklin Municipal Planning Commission will hold a public hearing on March 23rd. Of the same year. If it happens to be approved, then the amendment is adopted and the rezoning and site planning process starts next. Again, several meetings with Franklin Municipal Planning Commission, the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, and the Historic Zoning Commission. With that, I believe we have concluded this presentation. I will be happy to try to answer any questions that you all may have. So if you would, please forward those to us on our meeting chat, and I will do my best to see if I can answer. We have a question from Mr. Steve Bruckman, if I'm correct. And the question was, are they all rental properties? No, they're not. The majority are. I'm going to go back to my site plan if I can real quick. Right there, please. Thank you. So you can see buildings 14 and 15 in the lower right, multifamily. We have 254 dwelling units in those. Those would be anticipated to be all rentals. There would be quite a variance in the sizes of these units. The top floors on all three of these buildings would be or penthouses and, substantial in terms of living area. We're also looking for the opportunity to put in smaller, 500, 600, 700 square foot units that could be rented by some of the creatives, sons and daughters of Franklin residents that are having a hard time finding a place to live. Or even some of the folks that could potentially even, work at the factory and live in a small little piece of this community that we're trying to create. Jeff has asked how many stories are the proposed apartment buildings? Again, if we go to the elevation, I think it's one after, please, one before, one after. There you go. It's a modified base to express 3 stories. It's 4 stories actually with a 5th story recess. In comparison, Jameson Station has 3 stories with a 4th story recess. However, because they have retail on the bottom floor, facing Liberty Pike, their ceilings are probably somewhere in the 15 to 16 foot range, which is typical for retail. We're adopting that same concept, but we're actually going to hide them behind the facade as the architects designed them to create this appearance of a modified base expressing 3 stories. Alan asks, please explain further about the median on Liberty Pike. At this point, it is just conceptual. I think this will come out and will be heavily discussed at the factory district workshop that will be coming up. We would love to see medians introduced to slow down traffic. If you think about it, everyone that's coming from Macatcher down Liberty Pike has to stop at Franklin Road and turn left or right for the most part. So increase or adding medians, adding greenery, adding shelter spots for pedestrians that might be crossing over to the factory. These medians would help us accomplish that. Donna asked, the parking for building 14 and 15, is it underground? Yes, I will go back to our site plan, please. If you'll notice that buildings 15 through 14, everything within the confines of Liberty Pike, New Road, and Daniels Drive, we have 2.5 stories of parking buried under all 3 of these buildings. And that accommodates both residents and guests. And of course, we'd also have parallel parking for visitors that might be visiting residents. It's some of the single family or duplexes along what we call New Street. Let's see, Mark, let's see. Where is the assisted living? We do not have any assisted living in this. Quite simply, the design concept of Envision Franklin allows for assisted living in a multifamily specified area. But in this specific case, we were only asking for or only looking for residential dwelling units. Does it include any subsidized or lower income units? No. You mentioned that your site falls off. What permits are required for stormwater management? What is the plan? The city of Franklin has some of the strictest stormwater and water quality guidelines and standards in the state. And I'm not blowing smoke on that one. As we get into further design, which will be way down the road, assuming we get past this tonight, all stormwater will be captured on site. It will be treated and then released per design guidelines. Question from Matt, to be clear, are the single family duplexes and townhomes rental properties? No, they are for sale. How wide is the walkway on your side of the street? The City of Franklin Greenway Trail Plan and Transportation Plan has indicated a 12-foot wide multi-purpose path or trail, as is built along Franklin Road in some cases, on our side of the project. On the factory side of the road, I think they still anticipate a 6-foot sidewalk, which would be standard. Will there be rooftop patios and outdoor spaces on top of the apartment buildings similar to Jameson Station? Absolutely. We have set back, if you're looking at this building, and I know it's hard for you to follow, but there are several step backs as we gain height. One of the reasons for that was to create opportunities for outdoor dining, sunset viewing, things of that nature. So on building number 14 as indicated here, you can see the outdoor terrace that's in the upper left of the site. And that would be 4 stories above Liberty Pike at that point. Next question. How many parking spots are available? Parking spots, again, Franklin has some pretty strong parking standards. They exceed, I believe, 2 spaces per dwelling unit on average as currently prescribed. We will be going through a more detailed process, assuming that we get beyond this land use amendment. Some of these questions that you asked, quite frankly, we haven't got down to that level of detail yet. But again, going forward, we certainly will. Love the overall look. Does the pathway off the greenhouse park plan to go all the way to Old Liberty Pike? Yes, we would like it to, but of course, we'll continue to work with our neighbors along Old Liberty Pike. And as more specific design and plans are developed, we would love to see a pedestrian connection between the Old Liberty Pike Park and the park and amenities, and then on to the factory that you're seeing here. Will you be available to work with us on that plan? Looks like it. Yes, yes. Justin asked, for those of us that have homes on Old Liberty Pike near Daniels, is there a plan for privacy barrier to prevent clear view into our backyards? Also, our private residence is alongside the walkway onto Old Liberty. So will there be a privacy barrier? I wouldn't anticipate a privacy barrier in terms of fencing. Certainly one of the reasons that we located the single family and duplex homes along the southern side of our site was because of the old growth tree row that runs along the property line. Is our intent to work with the site so that we stay off of those trees, that tree line, and save all of those that might be worthy of it. Of course, in addition to that, there would be landscape screening. But, you know, to your question, residential houses, backing up to residential houses, I assume there would be some landscaping, but again, no fencing anticipated at this point. How far back from the street is the front of these apartments, buildings? If you will go, Chris, yeah, and we can zoom in right here. You can see some of the dimensions we dropped on here again at this very conceptual stage, but we are absolutely pushing the buildings back as much as possible to create a more welcoming feeling as you walk across it. If you're familiar with Jameson Station, you know that the sidewalk is pretty much up on the road, right up on the road. And as you can see, it's the building itself is roughly 21 feet off of the road. Our building, east building, I think the closest is somewhere in the neighborhood of 28 feet. You can see that it varies. And of course, the courtyard steps back roughly 77 feet from the center line. Also, our west building on the right is roughly 30 feet off the face of curb. And again, the courtyard is set back about 77 feet, both width and depth. So we've created these very nice, welcoming courtyards. It will have unit entrances actually off them, individual unit entrances as required by the city of Franklin. We will have stoops coming down onto the sidewalk, and it will be a very, very much a residential designed experience that also allows pedestrians to travel east and west and north and south, either Daniels Drive or walking down through the middle, highly landscaped amenity area that you see separating building, the east building and the west building. Will there be access to Old Liberty Pike? No. Will the rooftop patios on top of the apartments overlook or look into the back of the homes on Old Liberty Pike? It is not my understanding that is the intent. Everything is, I mean, we're going to have units up there, but they're going to be, everything really orients towards Liberty. Have you conducted any study concerning the increased possibility of flooding on Old Liberty Pike? If so, what were the results? Again, that is one of those very detailed design requirements that the city will look for us to provide should we get back past the land use plan amendment and rezoning that is yet to come. I can assure you that the city will be all over us to make sure we are following those guidelines. And we always do. We've been practicing in Franklin since 1996. So I like to feel that we have a pretty good understanding on what is required, and we have a very healthy working relationship with the city, and certainly respect the folks that we participate with down there. Let's see, how many retail spaces? Actually, we don't have any retail spaces. We've asked for the ability to maybe put in a small coffee bistro, if you will, or coffee shop to activate one of the corners at the middle pedestrian area. This would be primarily for service to residents. And it's not anticipated, and we certainly don't want to compete with any of the facilities that are over at the factory. In fact, our goal is to support everything the factory wants to do and hopefully provide additional residents that could make the factory itself totally successful. Please discuss the potential need for traffic signaling and expected capability of existing roads for handling grossly increased traffic. I apologize but that specific question is not part of the land use plan amendment. And so our traffic consultant is not with us here tonight. We will continue to have several public meetings. The client or my client, the McKeons, have been very welcoming in bringing people into their home to talk about the proposal, answer any questions, and I would certainly request that you reach out to us, and we will try to put you together with the right people to answer those questions. Do you anticipate this being an event venue of any sort? Live music? No. Again, our understanding is that's what the factory is all about. And we are here to, create residential opportunities directly across from the factory and to promote what we feel will be a very walkable community as far as residents and the shops and stores at the factory itself.
That's the last.
I believe that's the last question. I'll give it a couple more minutes. Anyone else would like to ask? I'll certainly entertain that. I'm going to close then by just saying very quickly that this amendment for the land use plan amendment to allow consideration of increased height within 10% of the Jamison Station building will allow for the development of an economically sound and viable mixed-use residential community with pedestrian connectivity to the park at Harlansdale Farm, the factory, Jamison Station, and most importantly, downtown Franklin. Envision Franklin recommends this site for multifamily housing. It reinforces the importance of this housing and a range of housing options and price points to support both employees and the local economy. An adequate housing supply is critical to fostering a diverse employment base necessary for continued economic vitality. The community has also expressed a need to provide a variety of housing for the purpose of attracting the creative class. To respond to these community values and meet market demands to make the project feasible, special consideration is proposed to increase the allowed height and reduce the parking requirements. This will allow for greater housing attainability by reducing overall costs per housing unit, thereby allowing more attainable units for more people. In a high-value infill location, which only has one chance to develop for the next 100 years, we're trying to get this one right. We appreciate the opportunity to speak to you tonight. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to meeting you soon. 2 more questions.
This one.
Will you please provide emails, contact information, et cetera, for neighbors to communicate with you? I absolutely will. Kaiser Vogren Design, we're here in town. If you can reach out to us, I will certainly include you in any public mailings that are going on. Assuming reasonably prompt city approvals, that's a big assumption. Can you speak to potential timeline to break ground through to certificate of occupancy? Again, we're in such an early stage that it's a bit of a guess at this point, but based on recent conversations, I believe we're looking at a 2025 at earliest move-in. 2026 is even potential because we still have a lot of design and approvals to go through with the city. Again, nothing's guaranteed here. I hope we do have quick review and approval, but I've been around long enough to know it doesn't happen that quick. Can we get a copy of this PowerPoint? No, but we will, I'm sorry, it will be made available to the city, and this will be available through the city, and it's being recorded. Price points, I'll be honest with you, I have no idea. Again, dealing with site planning at this point. City staff just noted that a link to the recording will also be placed on the city website at franklin.gov. Do we have any other questions?
Can mention right here. My contact information.
Okay. Excellent. Well, thank you all very much. We appreciate you being here, and we look forward to talking to you soon. Bye.